Hola amigos, Brad Evans here. It is week numero cinco, and I'm going to be on this AMA for the next several minutes to answer as many of your questions as humanly possible. So go ahead and lock and load any conundrums that you may have fantasy football wise. We're going to try to score you that W this week. A lot of news and notes flying off of the wire right now. Stephon Diggs is expected to be active according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. He was reportedly assessed $200,000 in fines this week for blowing off practice and meetings. Does the squeaky wheel get the grease? And it is really a prime situation for him after all the trade speculation and everything else. Adam Thielen also chirping. These guys are disgruntled because Gary Kubiak's system doesn't exactly boost the volume of wide receivers, as the Vikings have only called pass 43.8% of the time so far this year. But this is a get-right situation. Kirk Cousins, though he couldn't hit the target accurately in the gender reveal that we saw on Twitter was circulating last spring, maybe that was a harbinger of things to come. But if he gets anywhere between 35 and 40 reps through the air, that is good news for Diggs and Thielen, knowing the matchup. You look at the New York Giants, have allowed north of 9 yards per attempt on the season. They rank inside at the top 5 in most fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. So if you're, playing a Yahoo DFS game, for example, and you're looking for a contrarian player or two, the Minnesota wide receivers are definitely in that conversation. I believe Diggs is under $20 in the DFS game this week. So, I've been getting some questions about Diggs. I still trust him as a wide receiver 2 this week. Same with Adam Thielen, again, based on the matchup alone. Elsewhere, the LA Chargers are expected to rotate and split at what distribution we don't know, the workload between Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. My best guess, and again, I have no inside information. This is just pure speculation on my part. 60% Austin Eckler, 40% Melvin Gordon. I think that's a fair shake. I think that is something that could easily transpire. Eckler obviously in better game shape than Melvin Gordon is, but does it really matter what kind of workload either one of these cats gets? It's the My Little Ponies of Denver. Yes, we have to attach that phrase to the Broncos right now. Winless on the season. Vic Fangio and this defense, they haven't been opportunistic. They've given up a ton of chunk gains. Did you see Leonard Fournette? He's still running right now. He's probably running all the way through Nevada. He's just kept going since last Sunday, 225 yards on the ground. That's crazy. So that 1-2 punch of Eckler and Gordon could lead easily to firm RB2 numbers in 12-team leagues this week. I've got Gordon fearlessly forecasted between 70 and 80 combined yards and a touchdown, and I think Eckler could mirror that kind of production as well. So the Broncos collectively have given up 4.7 yards per carry to the running back position and 162 total yards per game to RBs as well. So I'd fire both those guys up the utmost confidence, knowing how desolate it can get at running back. Julian Edelman is expected to play despite a chest injury. You should be shocked by that. I actually like all the vertical options today for the New England Patriots. Love Josh Gordon. His over-under is at 56.5 according to DraftKings Sportsbook. With that player prop, I take the over there. I think it's 70+ and a touchdown for Cush Gordon, as Justin Perry, one of our producers, calls him. I think Edelman's got a good shot at 6 to 8 receptions. I think Philip Dorsett could easily get 60 yards and a touchdown. Why? It's Washington. Everybody marches on Washington when it comes to moving the football vertically. You look at Josh Norman, a 121.9 passer rating allowed. Jimmy Moreland, a 131.5 passer rating allowed to their assignments. Tom Brady should have himself a very nice, at least top 7 day, and those ancillary players around him should certainly benefit, although Sony Michel is TD or bust, as he always is. Tyrell Williams, according to NFL Network, Ian Rappaport, is a long shot now to suit up for the Oakland Raiders against the Chicago Bears across the pond in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. So, man, it's Darren Waller, it's Hunter Renfrow, it's a whole lot of for the Raiders, and a less than stellar matchup against one of the most unyielding defenses in the NFL, the Chicago Bears. As we heard Saquon Barkley, not going to be in uniform today for the Giants. Could be week 6. I mean, he looked pretty damn good on the film that was circulating around Twitter this week. Cutting, jumping, running. But the Giants got to give him another week. Wayne Gallman, getting a lot of questions about him. What do you do with him this week? I view him as a very fringy RB2. I got him like RB25. You look at the Minnesota Vikings, they're giving up just 3.9 yards per carry to the running back position, the 9th fewest fantasy points, 110.5 total yards per game. That's it. And Gallman's a guy that, last week had just 1.64 yards after contact per attempt, forced a missed tackle 14% of the time. There's nothing special about him. I mean, in the 31 Flavors ice cream shop, he's vanilla. There's nothing to him. I mean, there's not even a little swirl. There's no chunks of chocolate chips or anything like that. There's nothing exciting about Wayne Gallman. I mean, he's a volume guy, but on the Fantasy Football Hour television show, which you can watch right here on Yahoo Sports, we set an over-under of 82.5 total yards for Gallman, and I took the under. So there you go. Juju Smith-Schuster is a full-blown game-time decision, folks. He's dealing with that toe injury that he aggravated in the last matchup. Even if he goes, he's probably going to see a lot of Marlon Humphrey for the Baltimore Ravens. Really the only strength in this defensive backfield for Baltimore, who's given up just a 53 passer rating to his assignments. This could be more of a Deontay Johnson game. So it could be more of a James Conner game. Maybe Jalen Samuels gets more involved. He's got some flex appeal in deeper leagues as well. So Juju, very untrustworthy given his situation and status. Marlon Mack, another guy that's putting, it's really kind of tying hands together for a lot of fantasy owners out there. He's going to be a full-blown game-time decision tonight. So my suggestion, if you're a Marlon Mack enthusiast, go out and pick up Jordan Wilkins right now or Nyheim Hines and have that backup plan in place if Mack is indeed inactive, with it being a primetime kickoff against the Kansas City Chiefs. And you got to wait this thing out. If you can get one of those backup options to place in your bench, I think you got to see how this plays out in the end, because Kansas City has been so unbelievably forgiving in the trenches to opposing running backs, giving up 5.8 yards per carry, 165 total yards per game, 3 touchdowns, and a 9th most fantasy points to the position. So even though the Colts are heavy underdogs, double-digit underdogs, kind of like the Colts in the points, by the way, plus 11, with the total at 56.5, the highest on the board, it's going to be a scoring bonanza, whether it's on the ground or through the air for Jacoby Brissett and company. So that's why I'm saying playing the patience game with Mack could lead to major reward, even with one of the backups being elevated in his position. Same game, different name. Damian Williams is expected to go. He practiced in full for much of the week. What does that do to the backfield of Kansas City? Well, it complicates it. LaShawn McCoy's at the top of the totem pole. Then I think it goes Damian Williams, and it goes Darrell Williams. And the latter Williams is one you cannot trust, knowing we have no idea what kind of workload he's going to get. My projection for Damian would be 12 to 14 touches, pretty similar to what Darrell Williams was getting. Probably going to get a lot of the red zone work, going to be featured as a receiver on the backfield. That's his strength. On wheel routes, design routes, whatever it is. I think Damian Williams, very much an RB2 against the Colts. You look at Indy this season, they have allowed a generous amount of yards to the opposition. 10th most fantasy points, 4.9 yards per carry, 144.8 total yards per game, and 4 total touchdowns to rushers. That is what Indy has surrendered. So there you go there. Michael Gallup expected to return, though not a primo matchup against the Green Bay Packers and Jair Alexander, Tramon Williams and company. That is a secondary. It's only given up 6.1 yards per attempt through the air, 6.2 yards per attempt through the air this season, just 207.8 pass yards per game. So you might want to seek alternatives there. Don't plug him in right away. And one last note before I start diving into some of your questions here on this AMA. I've been getting a lot of questions in regards to Ronald Jones, the artist known as Rojo. Man, I've lambasted this dude over the years, ridiculed him, skewered him, whatever adjective you want to apply to him. But he's putting some egg on my face right now because he is starting to blossom right before our eyes. The added weight, which is leading to more assertive and aggressive downhill runs. It is not come at a cost of his elusiveness. This guy has forced 26.4% of his attempts have gone for missed tackles so far this season. So that's a remarkable number, 2.84 yards after contact per attempt. He's playing a vigorous snap count right now, and you get the New Orleans Saints. And I know the Saints are top 5 in fewest fantasy points allowed to the running back position, but I think Rojo on another 15 or so touches got a great shot at 70-80 combined and a touchdown because the Saints have given up 4.3 yards per carry to RBs. And Tampa, top 12 right now in terms of run blocking efficiency. Oh, let's also not forget Fantasy Football Live coming up to serve all of your additional fantasy football needs. Myself, Amanda Borges, Tank Williams, Andy Behrens, live from Chicago, Liz Loza, and Matt Harmon in our Los Angeles studios. We're going to be breaking down all the latest news and notes and answering your questions. Again, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, only on Yahoo Sports and streaming in the Yahoo Sports and Yahoo Fantasy apps. All right, let's get to some of your questions here, and they're coming fast and furious. Let's start with Mike Marino. Baker Mayfield or Allen? Which Allen are we talking about? Kyle Allen? Josh Allen? Tim Allen? Mike, this is a home improvement question. I mean, what are we talking about here, bro? I'm going to go with the former and not Josh or Kyle Allen in this particular dilemma. But please, folks, when you're throwing out Joneses, Smiths, Allens, whoever it is, give me the full name so I know who the hell you're talking about. There's a lot of people out there with similar names. There's only one Brad Evans. Actually, that's not true. There was a soccer player, and I used to get questions and hate tweets from people that, watch the footy directed at me. And I was like, I don't know anything about soccer. Joshua says Sony or Freeman in a 1-point PPR. Again, which Freeman are you talking about, bro? Devontae? Royce? I'll go Sonny Michel because you didn't give me the first name. Sonny Michel. I like that scene in Wolf of Wall Street when DiCaprio's high on ludes and he's crawling to the Lambo. That's how he's looked on the field so far this season, but he could trip and fall in the end zone. It's Washington. They're going to have a lot of goal-to-go opportunities, I feel, today. The New England Patriots will in the nation's capital. MB Lago on the YouTube. Joe Mixon or Austin Eckler? I'm going to go with Austin Eckler. Well, no, I'm not. I'm actually going to go with Joe Mixon. I think this is what we call a lucky 7 situation. I don't think you lose with either one of these guys. Again, the Broncos have just given up just platefuls of points to the opposition on the ground. And without Bradley Chubb in uniform, and Chubb was the number 2 run stopper in terms of run stop percentage, on this Broncos team, but he's out with the ACL injury. I mean, they're just ravaged. This is a crestfallen team across the board. But I love Joe Mixon today. I think this game's got a lot of shootout appeal between the Arizona Cardinals and the Cincinnati Bengals. Really in a game only a fantasy owner could love because both these franchises are just god-awful at this current moment in time. But it could be a buffet of fantasy goodness, and I think Joe Mixon is going to step up and just deliver spoonfuls. So I'm going to go with Joe Mixon there. Jason says Shepard or Dorsett. I'm going to go with Philip Dorsett. Again, this secondary of the Washington Redskins, very generous, very forgiving, very fruitful for fantasy purposes. And, I like Josh Gordon. I think he's going to get off the schneid this week. I think Philip Dorsett's got a really good shot at 60, 70 yards and a touchdown as well. Like just knowing the shortcomings of this unit as a whole. I mentioned about Norman and Moreland giving up 120 plus in terms of passer rating allowed to their assignments this season. So I think this is a week. I know New England's kind of struggled a little bit offensively at times, rather tepid in that area, but they are going to maximize their performance. I'm fairly convinced of that on the road today. Jerry Banks says Waller or Dorsett in the flex. It's close. It really is. You can throw on the Bears, and Darren Waller is just going to get peppered with targets, but I think there's more touchdown appeal here with Philip Dorsett, and that is the direction that I'm leaning there. Anthony J. Bonnevall says Melvin or Eckler. Again, I think it's going to be 60-40 Eckler to Gordon in terms of the timeshare. So give me Eckler, but don't be at all shocked that both these guys put up solid RB2 level numbers in 12-team leagues this week. Let's see. Artie says Tariq Cohen or Emmanuel Sanders is a flex. I'm going to go Emmanuel Sanders. I'm really curious to see who Casey Hayward is going to, I almost said Jason Hayward, Cubs season long dead and gone, is going to be shadowing today. Hayward's giving up just a 76.8 passer rating, 0.96 yards per snap to his assignments. But I think Sanders is not necessarily going to be that guy. That could be more Cortland Sutton, particularly inside the red zone. And Sanders, man, what a medical marvel that guy is and what he's been able to do coming off that Achilles injury late last season. He's wide receiver 16 right now, 74.5 yards per game. He's averaging over 8 targets per game. He's been over 76.5 yards, which he said on the Fantasy Football Hour, in 3 of his last 4. I think he could do it again. So that's a direction I go there. Brian says Sony or Lindsey. In a PPR, I go Phillip Lindsay. The Chargers, a bit disappointing defensively. And, the Broncos always play L.A. tough, whether in the Mile High City or in the soccer stadium in the City of Angels. And I go with Lindsey there. This could be a 5-catch game for him, more upside for him. And Sony's just TD or bust. That's just the issue there. Donnie says PPR, Deontay Johnson or Golden Tate. I'm going to go Deontay Johnson. Again, I'm hopeful that Juju will be on the field and maybe operate more of a decoy to try to lure that Marlon Humphrey shadow coverage away. And then Deontay Johnson can take advantage against Everett, could take advantage against a Brandon Carr. Those are the weakest links in this defensive backfield for the Baltimore Ravens. And Mason Rudolph right now, tunnel vision for Deontay Johnson, particularly inside the red zone. Jose says Sammy Watkins, Larry Fitzgerald, Josh Gordon, E2. Knowing that Watkins, he's expected to play, is dealing with a hamstring injury. Soft tissue issues are no bueno ever. I'm going Fitz, and I'm going Josh Gordon. I'm telling you, folks, I truly believe that Josh Gordon's going over 70 yards and a touchdown. He's due for a big game, and this is a prime opportunity to tap into that potential again against Washington on the road. Ryan Roy says, Juju or Ridley in a standard league? I think I'd go Bird in hand and Calvin Ridley. I know he struggled the last couple of weeks. I know it's not the greatest matchup on the planet going up against the Houston Texans on the road, but how could you trust Juju knowing he's labeled a game-time decision? There's a chance he may not even play. Even if he does, he could be more of that decoy, smoke and mirrors within this scheme. So go with the healthier option. TJ says Stephon Diggs or Tariq Cohen. I'm going Diggsy. Again, I think he's a great contrarian play based on the news that's come out. Does the squeaky wheel get the grease? I think he will. You can have a lot of success vertically against the Giants. They're giving up 9.3 pass yards per attempt. Probably going to see a lot of Janoris Jenkins, who's given up well north of 100 passer rating. I know he was Defensive Player of the Week, but let's remember what Janoris Jenkins allowed weeks 1 through 3. Everything. You get points. He gets points. She gets points. The dog gets points. Everybody gets points. We're going up against this secondary of the Giants, unless you're Washington and you're trotting out a green quarterback in Dwayne Haskins, who was a true deer in headlights. John says Golden Tate or Mohamed Sanu in a PPR. Give me Golden Tate. I think there'll be a force feeding to him from Daniel Jones, trying to get him quickly involved, to build up a chemistry, to build up an instant rapport vertically within this system. So for me, again, Minnesota, not the greatest in terms of defending the pass. Trey Wayne's 116 passer rating allowed. Xavier Rhodes giving up close to 100 passer rating allowed to his assignments. This isn't the lockdown unit that we've seen in years past. So that's the direction I go there. Samdeep says, Brad, this is your guy, your favorite name. Samdeep, Winston or Kyler Murray. Samdeep, yes, it is an amazing name. And this is a really close call, but I'm going with Kyler Murray. What version of the New Orleans Saints secondary are we going to see? Is it the one that shut down Dak Prescott and company last week, or the one that was weeks 1 through 3 giving up points left and right? I don't know. I still have trust issues with Jameis Winston. As great as he's looked here of late, I'm going to go with Kyler Murray. And you might say, well, Brad, you should have trust issues with him. He never has multi-TD games. I understand that, but I think Cincinnati, you can throw all day on them. We've seen that. And this could be like a 56 rush yard game, 50-60 rush yard game for Kyler Murray as well. So I think the floor is a little bit higher for Kyler because of that scoring duality and the consistent shortcomings of this defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's the direction I lean there. Chuck says Mark Andrews or Auden Tate in a PPR. Auden Tate is fascinating to me. He's basically a tight end. He's not particularly fast with like 4.66 40-yard dash, but a clear path to opportunity. And I love guys with clear paths to opportunity. 8 targets up for grabs within the Cincinnati receiving core because of John Ross's absence, and it's a primo matchup. You just look at the Arizona Cardinals, 8.3 or 8.5 pass yards per attempt they've allowed. If Tate sees a lot of Byron Murphy, the rookie's given up a 108.5 passer rating to his assignments. I mean, he could go for 70 plus and a touchdown. Great $10 player, by the way. If you want to pay up for like the Dalvin Cooks of the world and Yahoo DFS is one Auden Tate. Battlemaster Bacon. I love me some bacon on YouTube. I got to pick between Mark Ingram or Aaron Jones in a PPR league. For me, it's Aaron Jones. And you can't really lose to either one of these guys, but it's the PPR twist that I think sides with the Green Bay Packer. The weakness of Dallas is defending the run. Now, they rank, inside the top 10 in fewest fantasy points allowed to the running back position, but that number is a bit deceiving because they're giving up 4.5 yards per carry. No Jamal Williams. It's going to be the Aaron Jones show. This could be, upwards of 18 to 20 touches. We know that Dallas really defends the pass extraordinarily well. So I think Jones, maybe underneath an umbrella coverage, a lot of little dump off passes, some high percentage throws to, trickle the ball down the field from Aaron Rodgers to Aaron. So the Aaron connection could be in full effect today. So give me Aaron Jones there. Timmy says the status on Mac. He's a game time decision, Timmy. Like I said, you got to get a Jordan Wilkins. You got to get a Naheem Hines, put him on your bench and see what plays out if you want investment in this Colts backfield. And you should, because of how awesome Kansas City is for fantasy purposes to opposing running backs, giving up north of 5 yards per carry to rushers on the season. Claudia says Freeman or Fitzgerald. I don't know what Freeman you're talking about, Royce or Devontae, but I'm going Fitzgerald. Doesn't matter there. Again, I want as many pieces as I can in the Cincinnati-Arizona game with a total. I wonder what the total is on that. I'm going to pull that up right now. Shockingly, it's only at 46.5. I would bet over on that. I'd be shocked, given just the inadequacies defensively for both these teams. That game is anything less than in the upper 20s. Diggs says, Josh Gordon or Sammy Watkins. Again, Josh Gordon for me, please, all day. Travis is Josh Gordon or Josh Jacobs. And a flex in a PPR. Josh Gordon, bro. I mean, Bears only giving up 3.1 yards per carry to the running back position. Mikael says, Gore or Howard. More touchdown appeal with Jordan Howard. That's the direction I'm going this week. Philadelphia, of course, drawing the Jets. Jets, though, have only get up 3.7 yards per carry, but Howard's basically a poor man's Todd Gurley right now. And people might say, well, that's insulting. It really isn't. I mean, Todd Gurley's essentially touchdown dependent at this current moment in time. It's masking other flaws in his game. And really the same applies to Jordan Howard, who caught a touchdown pass last week. Yeah, I felt the earth shake as well when that happened. Javier says Devontae Freeman or Frank Gore. I'll go Devontae Freeman there. Slide advantage. Bobby says AJ Green's still in the NFL. LOL. Yes, he's still in the NFL, but we're probably not going to see him until at least, I would say, mid to late October. And there's rumblings that he could be on the trade block, so we'll see what happens there. Rusty on YouTube says Matt Ryan or Jameis Winston. I'm going to go with Jameis Winston there. Again, though, we don't know what version this New Orleans Saints defense is going to show up, but they have been generous through the air, to say the least. There's no question about that. Walter says Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Michael Gallup. Gallup in his first game back. Tough matchup. I go MVS. No Devontae Adams, obviously. So there should be an increase in target share, but I wouldn't expect spectacular results from either one of these guys. More fringy wide receiver threes than anything else here in week numero cinco. Fernando says Josh Jacobs or James White in a PPR league. I'm going James White. A guy who has posted ridiculous numbers when Rex Burkhead has been inactive here in recent years. I think he's averaged something like 18 fantasy points per game in a PPR setting during those instances. And I think, you could definitely move the ball quite willingly against the Washington Redskins defense. So James White for me is the play there. Jay says Wentz or Winston. Give me Winston. Nicholas says Dorsett or DeMarcus Robinson. Philip Dorsett, please, all day. David says, what do you think about Derrick Henry this week? Look, Derrick Henry is everything we expected him to be. He's a workhorse running back. He's not catching the ball a ton. He's posted top 10 numbers. He's getting the goal line work. Tennessee's been better than advertised here of late in terms of moving the football up and down the field, and you get Buffalo. And the one thing you can do on Buffalo is run the football. They give it up north of 4 yards per carry, the running back position. So I think this is going to be a heavy formula of Derrick Henry in this game plan for Vrabel and company. So for me, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry there. I mean, you're playing him essentially every single week, unless you're like in a 4-team league and you just have, a plethora of options to lean on. Annie says, or Arnie, excuse me, says McCoy or Jordan. I'm assuming that's Howard. I'm going to go with LaShawn McCoy. The Colts have allowed the 10th most fantasy points, keep in mind, at the running back position. Arlen says Tyler Boyd or Tyrell Williams. Tyrell Williams not expected to play, according to reports, so makes your dilemma easy. You're going Tyler Boyd. Mario says Tyler Eifert, question mark, on YouTube. Will the streak continue for the Arizona Cardinals? They've allowed the most fantasy points to the tight end position. And what's fascinating is they've allowed so many fantasy points, over 23 per game. If you were to compare that, let's say they were a quarterback, they would be the third most valuable quarterback based on the amount of points that they have surrendered. That is extraordinary. It's mind-blowing to me. The next team in most fantasy points allowed the tight end positions, Tampa Bay, and they've given up 7.9 fewer fantasy points per game to tight ends than Arizona. Eifert scores today. CJ Uzoma probably scores today if you're looking for a deep league stab. I mean, that is a clear weakness. They are just allergic to defending the position. It's like they got cooties or something. Like, we're not touching them. So I like Tyler Eifert today. Jordan Smith says Damian Williams or Philly Lindsay. I'm going to go Damian Williams there. I'm going to take a shot on him to get an end zone plunge or two, and he's going to see a lot of work in the pass game. Chris says Jacobs or Gallman in a PPR. I'm going to go with Wayne Gallman. Jordan Smith says Damian Williams or Lindsay again. Again, Jordan, I'm going Damian Williams. Andrew says Jeffrey or Fitzgerald. Give me Larry Fitz. Sparrow on YouTube, Gallman or Edelman. Give me Edelman. Slight advantage there. Stephen Asher says Hyde or Jacobs. I'm going to go Carlos Hyde. Austin Smooth says Watkins, Ridley, Michelle, McCoy, or Aguilar, PPR flex. It, to me, clearly LaShawn McCoy. Jim says Lindsay or Bell. Give me Le'Veon Bell. Terry says Keyshawn Johnson or Greg Olsen in a PPR. I got Greg Olsen, man. He has been really the apple of Kyle Allen's eye, over 70 yards in consecutive games. The more fit version of Hopper from Stranger Things is one Greg Olsen. Guillermo says Watson or Wentz. Give me Deshaun Watson. Costa says Diggs, Jeffries, or Hyde in the flex. I'm going to roll the dice on Stephon Diggs, and hopefully the squeaky wheel gets the grease there. Jesus says Damian Williams or Calvin Ridley in a non-PPR. Damian Williams, please, for me. Mike says Auden Tate or Golden Tate. Give me Auden Tate in the battle of the Tates. So I think Golden's got a good shot at 5-6 receptions today. They're going to try to build that chemistry right away with the greenhorn and Daniel Jones. Bob says McCoy or Josh Gordon in a standard flex. Man, LaShawn McCoy by just a nose hair. That's so close in my estimation. Johnny says Juju or T.Y. Hilton. Give me T.Y. Hilton. Giddy up. I got him ranked, I believe, at wide receiver 2 right now. And I love all the options in this game tonight between the Colts and the Kansas City Chiefs with that over-under at 56.5. Justin says Winston or Jimmy G. Give me Winston, please. Gary says, would you start Melvin Gordon this week over people like Breida or Royce Freeman? Yes, I would start Melvin Gordon over both of those guys. Josh says Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott. Give me Aaron Rodgers. Honestly, if a guy like Andy Dalton's out there on waivers, I would pick him up and plug him in if it's a shallow format. James says Gore or Gallman. Give me Gallman. Mike Atwood says Sutton, Gallup, or Gord, half-point PPR. That's a tough one. I'm going to go Sutton, but I don't feel great about it, to be honest with you. Kevin says Tevin or Allison at the flex. Tevin Coleman is very questionable. I think you got to play the healthier option. And Geronimo Allison, unless you have a crutch in that Browns 49ers game to lean on. Terry says Keyshawn Johnson or Greg Olsen in a PPR. Give me Greg Olsen. Nicholas says Aaron Jones or Damian Williams. Aaron Jones all day long, please. Andrew says Golden Tate or Delaney Walker. Go Bills. Give me Golden Tate. Mike Hull says start McCoy or Jordan Howard in the hope that Mac plays. I go McCoy. You got to go McCoy there. Brennan says mandatory Montgomery or LaShawn McCoy. Give me mandatory Montgomery because I put him on my lames list. Reverse psychology says that he's going to score 3 touchdowns today. Please. Moving on. Brady says Dak or Kyler. Give me Kyler. Thomas says Rodgers or Dalton. Give me the pumpkin spice in Andy Dalton. William says Deontay Johnson or Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, please. Rusty Shackelford On YouTube says Philip Lindsay or Josh Jacobs. Give me Philip Lindsay. Arnie says Scantling or DJ Moore. Give me MBS. Eddie says, I have Josh Jacobs, Matt Brady, Melvin Gordon, and Ronald Jones. Which two do I start? I start Melvin Gordon and Ronald Jones. A couple of more, and I got to bounce. Don't forget Fantasy Football Live coming up at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. I'm talking extraordinarily fast because I've had 2 cups of coffee this morning. James says Josh Jacobs or Wayne Gallman. I'm going to go Wayne Gallman. And Michael Condon says Rodgers or Winston. Give me Jameis Winston. And Mr. Irrelevant, Grant, says Allen Robinson or Philip Dorsett. I'm going to go with Philip Dorsett. Peace and elbow grease. Get that W in week number 5. And don't forget to watch Fantasy Football Live. And I got a spectacular t-shirt, which you can't entirely see. You're going to see it in all its glory on the show. YahooSports.com. See you then. And good luck. Adios, amigos.